Welcome to Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Link in the description. Forget the fees. TicketClub.com. March Madness coming up. TicketClub.com. They will hook you up. ACC teams that will be better in 2025. Number 5, the most important one on this list, because it determines my sanity for the calendar year following. So right now, I'm not in a good spot, guys. FSU. Look, worst record in modern program history last year. So basic math tells you they'll be better. So I've given myself a wide berth here, and believe me, I'm a guy who needs a wide berth. But boom. Fat joke of the day. Anyhow, Thomas Castellanos comes in. He did quit on his team at Boston College, which upsets me. But we don't know all the factors involved. He seems to be enthusiastic about being back with Gus Malzahn. And if he quits on this team, his football career is over. So sometimes when they're holding on to the very end of the rope, they hold on tighter. Squirrel White, Deuce Robinson come in at wide receiver. Much better. The entire offensive line replaced for the most part. Richie Leonard, the only starter from last year that comes back, and he did not play the majority of last year. They've got young running backs ready to go that should help the running team. Gus Malzahn steps in as offensive coordinator. Herb Handed, offensive line coach. New blood and new ideas along that side of the ball, not to mention Tony White brings his 3-3-5 over to Tallahassee from Nebraska, where he's been fantastic the last couple of years and where he was fantastic at Syracuse before that. That should pay dividends for the Seminoles, even though we'll see where they are in their growth phases. But this should be a team, bottom line, their worst years every year should be 8-4s or 9-3s. That's what they're paying for. That's what they're set up for. That's what they're paying Mike Norvell for. Yeah, you lost your quarterback. The next guy is not as experienced. This is a make or break year for Mike Norvell. And if he gets back to at least the baseline of 8-4, that will be fine. And maybe if things fall the right way, they can contend for a conference title. I'm not holding out hope with Clemson and SMU and others in the league, some of whom we'll talk about here. Number 4, Georgia Tech. Already a really good season last year and navigated it well in spite of a lot of injuries to Haynes King, who couldn't really throw the ball down the stretch. They beat Miami without him being able to throw. They only lost to Georgia Tech because of a really, really bad non-targeting call when Haynes King got targeted. Otherwise, that game's over, and Georgia may not even be in the college football playoff. This was a team who was affecting the playoff in many ways, all down the line from the beginning of the season and ruining Florida State's hopes and dreams right off the bat to the end of the season and putting a charge into Georgia. Haynes King is back. He's one of college football's best leaders and best football minds out on the field. He can do a lot of things. He's tough. He's gritty. The team's built around him. They rally around him. They've got a great coach in Brent Key. This team is going to keep getting better. Georgia Tech, I think, at least a game better than they were last year, if not more, and maybe in contention for that conference title. Number 3. Duke. There's only one reason I think this. They went out and Duke football put themselves at the forefront. They decided to do a little bit of what basketball does, and they spent some money. They went and got Darian Mensah, the quarterback from Tulane. Very good first season as their starter last year. He now comes to Duke and Manny Diaz, a defense that's really good, a quarterback that's improved, although they could have gotten by with Malik Murphy this year. But Darian Mensah steps in, an upgrade in the passing game over Malik Murphy, and someone who is an absolute gamer and will help them maybe close the gap. This is a team who, outside of Clemson and Florida State, has the third most 9-win seasons in this decade of the ACC teams. Pretty hard to believe, through 3 coaches as well, Cutcliffe, Elko, and now Manny Diaz. Number 2, Louisville. There's Jeff Brom back in the day. He's, of course, the head coach at Louisville. I think they've upgraded at quarterback from Tyler Shuck to Miller Moss. Jeff Brom's offensive acumen and coaching alone should help them score points. Their defense is always good. Maybe not great, but good. Miller Moss is a better player than Tyler Shuck. And he got to the ACC title game 2 years ago with Jack Plummer as his starting quarterback. This, with Miller Moss, I can see being a very similar thing. Can they get the kind of running game they got 2 years ago? Can they close out games better than they did this year, this past season in 2024? If those two questions are answered, and I think they will be, then Louisville will be better in contending in the ACC in 2025. And number one, Pitt. Pitt was gangbusters until Eli Holstein got hurt. When Eli Holstein got hurt, they stopped winning games. Eli Holstein healthy for a whole year, conference championship contender. Now look, Clemson and SMU still exist, and they're not going anywhere. They'll be just as good as they were next year. It was hard for me to say better, but they will be just as good, at least in my opinion. Pitt, though, was a team who was going gangbusters and then hit the wall. I even left Syracuse off this list, although I have confidence about them as well. But Pitt hit the wall after Eli Holstein went out. If they solidify the depth that prevents him from being the end-all, be-all, then yes, that will help. And also, if he is healthy, you can see what he can do. He was one of the highest recruited quarterbacks in the country, originally committed to A&M, flipped to Alabama, and then, of course, Nick Saban leaves. He goes to Pitt. He's the starter there last year, was really good, and is only going to get better from here. Eli Holstein, healthy a whole year. Pitt, better than last year, and a contender in the ACC, and that's reason enough to do the gritty, because I said so. SMO, AKY, please send us home.